The alarm screamed, a banshee ripping through the late-night calm. Possible structure fire, Elm Street, residential. I was up and geared before the adrenaline even had time to fully kick in. Elm Street was a bad address, old houses crammed together, tinderboxes waiting for a spark. Driving the rig, I could already see the angry orange glow painting the sky. The air reeked of acrid smoke, thick enough to taste. By the time we pulled up, flames were licking at the second-story windows of a Victorian, devouring the ornate wooden trim. It was chaos. Hoses snaked across the street, the roar of the engine a constant drone. Someone yelled about a possible occupant. My gut clenched. That was my cue. Let's go. I shouted to Miller, my partner. We charged towards the front door, axes raised. The heat hit me like a physical blow, pushing back against my protective gear. We kicked in the door, the wood splintering with a satisfying crash. The interior was an inferno. Smoke filled the air, thick and black, making it hard to see more than a few feet. The heat was intense, searing my lungs with each breath. We crawled low, following the faint glow of Miller's flashlight. Then I saw him. He was standing in the middle of the living room, bathed in the unholy light of the flames. He was tall and gaunt, wearing what looked like a tattered suit. But it wasn't his clothes that made my blood run cold. It was him. The fire was swirling around him, licking at his skin, but he didn't flinch, didn't scream. He just stood there, staring into the flames, his face serene, almost peaceful. "Sir! Get down!" I yelled, my voice muffled by my mask. "You need to get out now." He didn't move. Didn't even acknowledge me. His eyes were locked on the inferno, a strange, almost hypnotic fascination in his gaze. Miller reached out, trying to grab him, but the man brushed his hand away with surprising strength. "Leave me," he said, his voice a low, rasping whisper that somehow cut through the roar of the fire. "This is where I belong." His words were like a punch to the gut. A slow, knowing smile spread across his face. "You can't save me," he whispered, his voice now a chilling growl. "This is my penance. My reward." He released Miller's hand and reached out towards me. Instinct took over. I stumbled back, tripping over a charred piece of furniture. The man stepped forward, his eyes burning into mine. "You can join me," he said, his voice a seductive invitation. "The pain is exquisite." I scrambled backwards, desperate to escape. Miller, thankfully, understood. He grabbed me, pulling me towards the door. The heat was unbearable, but I couldn't take my eyes off the man. He was still standing there, the flames now engulfing him completely, but he didn't scream. He didn't even twitch. We stumbled out of the house, collapsing on the lawn, gasping for air. The other firefighters were focused on containing the blaze, oblivious to the horror I had just witnessed. Once the fire was extinguished and the scene secure, they went inside. No body found, they reported later, their faces grim. Just ash. But I knew. He was there. And he was gone. Leaving only a lingering sense of dread and the haunting image of his black eyes, burning into my soul. I haven't slept properly since. Every time I close my eyes, I see him, standing in the flames, beckoning me to join him. I know he's still out there, somewhere. Waiting. And I fear the day I'll meet him again. Because this time, I don't know if I'll be able to escape. The fire, the exquisite pain, it's a siren song in the back of my mind, calling me closer, whispering promises of absolution and damnation in equal measure. And I fear, more than anything, that I might actually listen. The alarm shrieked, tearing me from a fitful doze in the recliner. Multiple vehicle accident, Highway 12, mile marker 47. Possible entrapment. I threw on my gear, the familiar weight grounding me as adrenaline began to pump. Mile marker 47 was a notorious blind curve, hugged by a steep embankment. I'd pulled bodies from that stretch of road before, but nothing could have prepared me for what waited. The scene was a symphony of twisted metal and shattered glass under the harsh glare of our headlights. The air hung thick with the acrid smell of gasoline and the metallic tang of blood. But that wasn't what made my stomach churn. It was the cars. They weren't just crashed. They were pinched, as if some colossal hand had squeezed them into grotesque, mangled sculptures. Steel crumpled and folded in ways that defied physics. Doors were fused shut, roofs collapsed into the passenger compartments. It was like a nightmare Pollock painting, rendered in crimson and chrome. Jesus, Miller breathed beside me, his face pale under the flashing lights of the ambulance. What the hell happened here? We started working, the jaws of life screaming as we tried to pry open the first car. The silence inside was more horrifying than any scream. The driver, well, there wasn't much driver left. Just a horrifying mass of flesh and bone, contorted into the same unnatural shapes as the car. The other vehicles were the same. Each contained a tableau of mangled humanity, frozen in their final, agonizing moments. As we moved deeper into the wreckage, I saw it. At the very front of the twisted procession, almost as if it was the architect of this metallic carnage. It was formless. A being of pure shadow, impossibly black against the already dark asphalt. It was crouched low, twitching with erratic, jerky movements. I couldn't make out any features, no discernible face, no limbs. Just blackness. Except for the eyes. 2 points of light, burning with an unnerving, intelligent intensity. They were the only things that had any definition, like pinpricks of pure malevolence staring straight into my soul. They tracked me as I approached, a cold, calculating intelligence radiating from them. I raised my axe, the steel suddenly feeling inadequate, almost comical. "What the hell are you?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper. The creature didn't respond. It just twitched, the unnerving silence broken only by the crackling of the burning engines and the distant wail of sirens. Its eyes locked on mine, and a profound sense of dread filled me. Not the fear of facing a fire, or of pulling a child from a wrecked car. This was something primal, something ancient and wrong. I took a step closer, my hand trembling as I gripped the axe tighter. The creature took a step back, its formless body rippling as if it were a pool of liquid darkness disturbed by a breeze. Then, with a speed that defied its lack of visible limbs, it moved. Not ran, not jumped, but shifted, blurring into the darkness at the edge of the highway. And then it was gone. We never found it. The investigation concluded with the vague explanation of possible sinkhole causing the horrific pileup. But I know what I saw. We all did. I still see those eyes, burning in the darkness behind my eyelids. I still feel the cold dread emanating from that thing. The world hasn't felt the same since. Every accident I respond to, I look for it, lurking in the shadows, waiting to reshape reality into its own horrifying design. Some nights, I lie awake and wonder what horrors it will unleash next. And I know, with a chilling certainty, that whatever it is, it's already out there, watching, waiting, its eyes burning like coals in the darkness. The siren wailed, a mournful cry that ripped through the pre-dawn stillness. I hauled myself out of bed, adrenaline already pumping. Another fire. Lately, that's all it ever was. 4 fires in as many weeks. 4 families, gone. Each scene a carbon copy of tragedy, the house a roaring inferno, the family huddled together in what was left of a bedroom, burned beyond recognition. And the smell. God, that smell of burnt flesh and despair never left you. But there was something else, too, something that burrowed under my skin and gnawed at my sanity. In each house, amidst the charred remnants of lives, lay a single photograph, miraculously untouched by the flames. A family portrait. Happy faces, frozen in time, oblivious to the horror that awaited them. And in the background, blurred and indistinct, but undeniably there was a man. He was unnaturally tall, almost impossibly so. His features were shrouded in shadow, but the sheer wrongness of his presence in those family moments sent a chill down my spine every time I saw him. After the first fire, I dismissed it as a morbid coincidence, a trick of the light in the chaos. By the second, I was uneasy. By the fourth, I was obsessed. I showed the photos to the other guys at the station. Most shook their heads, muttering about pareidolia, the human tendency to see faces in random patterns. A couple admitted the figure was creepy, but dismissed it as an overexposure or a flaw in the film. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this man was the key. I spent my off-duty hours poring over archived newspaper articles, local history books, anything that might shed light on who he was, what he represented. I showed the photos to detectives, only to be met with polite skepticism and a thinly veiled suggestion that I take some time off to de-stress. I was going in circles. The fires kept happening, the photos kept appearing, and I was running out of time. Then came Tuesday. My day off. I decided to spend it at home, trying to reconnect with my own family, my wife, Sarah, and our two kids, 8-year-old Emily and 6-year-old Ben. We were having a rare moment of domestic bliss, playing board games around the dining room table, laughter filling the air. Later, after the kids were in bed, I was flipping through our family photo albums. Nostalgia, a brief respite from the darkness that had consumed me. I paused on a photo from our last summer vacation. Us, smiling, carefree on the beach. And then I saw him. He was there, in the background, barely visible between two palm trees. The same impossibly tall figure, the same indistinct features, the same unsettling aura of wrongness. He was in my life, in my family's life, before the fires even started. My blood ran cold. I felt a sickening lurch in my stomach. I had never seen this man before in my life. That's when I heard it. The soft, almost imperceptible flick of a lighter. I whirled around. He was standing there, in the hallway, bathed in the flickering light from the living room. He was even taller than I imagined, his head almost touching the ceiling. His face was still obscured by shadows, but his eyes, they burned with an unholy fire. And his hands. They weren't hands at all. They were made of flint, smooth and dark, the kind you'd strike to ignite a flame. Panic surged through me. I lunged forward, desperate to stop him, to protect my family. But before I could reach him, a wave of intense vertigo washed over me. The room spun violently. My legs buckled beneath me, and I crashed to the floor, paralyzed. I could only watch, helpless, as he moved towards the living room. I heard Sarah scream, the children crying out in terror. Then, the smell of gasoline. The first flicker of flame danced across the curtains. In seconds, the room was ablaze. Heat seared my skin. Smoke filled my lungs. I tried to scream, to crawl, to do anything, but my body wouldn't respond. The fire spread quickly, consuming everything in its path. My house, my family, my life. I was trapped, forced to watch as the inferno engulfed us all. Through the flames, I saw him standing there, silhouetted against the inferno, his figure impossibly tall and menacing. He didn't speak, didn't move. He simply watched, his flint hands glowing red in the heat. As the flames closed in, I understood. He wasn't just at the fires. He was the fire. He was the embodiment of destruction, a silent, malevolent force that had chosen us, marked us for oblivion. And as the world turned to ash around me, I realized I had failed. I had failed to protect my family. I had failed to stop the fire. And now, we were all doomed to burn, forever trapped in his infernal portrait of destruction.